Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Day 2 of the draft is here. The Seahawks are set to pick 4 times today in what could be a really interesting day. If you've been following along to our coverage so far, or if you're new to us, don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button. We are edging closer towards 10,000. I don't want you guys to miss out on any of the coverage over the course of this draft. So hit subscribe, give the video a like. Leave a comment in the comment section afterwards. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to add to this discussion, send in your super chats and I will read those out. So great to be here again. Great to have you with us, discussing what is going to happen on day 2 of the draft. What I'm going to do is I am going to do a mock draft, second and third round. And then as we get towards the Seahawks picks, we'll run through some of those options. So let's get into it then. Here we go. So the great thing about the Pro Football Network and the Sportskeeda mock draft simulator is this is if you guys want to do this on your own, is that it will put all of the first round picks that have already happened into their system. So you can just basically jump straight to 33 and all the players have been taken as they were in the actual draft. So here we go. And before we dig deep into this, it is so hard to project round 2. So this is really just, and round 3 for that matter. So this is just to sort of create some talking points on who could be there for the Seahawks. So 33 for the Browns. I think if you read a lot of the mock drafts that are out there, they are probably going to put Shedeur Sanders at 33. And I don't think he's going to be the pick at 33. I think he's handled this whole process, he and his dad, appallingly. They just made a complete dog's dinner of the entire draft process. He was not a good enough player to be sort of saying, or his dad was saying, that he's going to pick and choose where he goes during the season. That would have been a turn off. 12 months ago, they were calling out players on social media who had basically that moved off the team, who'd left Colorado to go elsewhere. That was an awful look. He's constantly throwing his offensive lineman under the bus. You sort of get to the draft process. He goes to the Shrine Bowl, doesn't throw, just has meetings, didn't get to the Senior Bowl, didn't throw at the Combine. Apparently during the interviews at the Combine was basically like being a bit disinterested and looking almost as if he was trying to shape his way to certain teams. He was nowhere near good enough to do that. I don't think Trevor Lawrence could have acted that way necessarily, let alone Shedeur Sanders. So I don't really understand what their approach has been, and it's not a surprise he's lasted to round 2. And I've got to tell you, I don't know where he's going to go. He may fall to round 3. Why would you take him in round 2, some of these teams? I just think that the league's going to give him even more of a humbling coming up when round 2 starts. I just do not think that he is going to rush off the board. Someone has asked, when does day 2 start? Day 2 starts at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So to answer that question, it's midnight where I am, 4 p.m. I've had 2 hours sleep since last night. It's 4 p.m. Pacific time, if anybody's wondering. So who will the Browns take if it's not going to be Shedeur Sanders? Well, they need offensive line. They really, really need to help with some offensive line. They lost their left tackle. They haven't really replaced him. I think it's pretty obvious that they're going to go with an offensive lineman here. And I'm looking at my board as well as the rankings here because I don't want to miss anybody out that they've got lower than me. Yeah, I think somebody like Ariante Ursary, he can play left tackle. That's where he's projected to go. Their right tackle, DeJuan Jones, had a few kind of effort question marks, shall we say, coming out of Ohio State, and they took him anyway. So I don't think they'll have any issue taking Ursary here. And he's somebody who could potentially play left tackle. So I think there's a decent chance that this is the direction they will go. And this is the kind of range where I think a lot of people expected him to go anyway. 34, the Texans. They could be another offensive line team. They could look at receiver like someone like Luther Burden, who fits that offense. I think they are a couple of good options for them. And, there are other areas they could look at here. I'm torn between going with Jonah Savaiinaea, who I think a lot of people expect is, again, going to go in this kind of a range because they didn't take the offensive lineman in round 1, and that feels like their big need. I'm taking Luther Burden, the receiver. And do you know what? I think I'm going to take Luther Burden. I just think in this kind of range, they might think he's too good to pass up there. 35 Titans. They need a pass rusher. They have almost nothing in terms of pass rush. So what are they going to do? Are they going to stop Mike Green's fall here? Are they going to take Donovan Ezeraku? I think it could go either way. I'm going to have them taking Mike Green. I personally would prefer Donovan Ezeraku, and the character concerns around Mike Green are probably the reason why he's still here, and they could sink him even further. But it's one of those, like, how far is he going to fall as a consequence of those character concerns? I've got them taking Mike Green here at number 35, though. Brown's back on the board because of that trade with Travis Hunter. So people might go, are they going to go quarterback here? I've just got the sense that the Browns are passing on quarterbacks this year, at least early on, and probably aren't going to go in this direction. I've seen people projecting Jalen Milroe and Shedeur Sanders with these 2 picks. I'm not sure that that's the direction they're going to go. And when I look at the board, you know, do they want to get another pass rusher to pair with Myles Garrett potentially? Do they want to go cornerback here? Apparently, Greg Newsome, the cornerback, is on the trade block. And for that reason, I think they might go with a cornerback. And I am going to have them stopping Will Johnson's fall and taking him here at number 36 for the Cleveland Browns. 37 Raiders, I think, could go in a couple of different areas here. Good cornerbacks on the board. I think the receivers are definitely an option because they don't have any. But are they going to go with another skill player, having taken one in the first round? Not sure. Maybe they would. Right tackle's not a great prospect in this situation. They could use another pass rusher. They could use Carson Schwessinger to play linebacker. I think it's an interesting one. But there is an expectation that the wide receivers are going to come off the board quickly. So I'm going to have them taking Jaden Higgins here at number 37 because they just don't have anything at receiver. And they need a receiver. 38 Patriots. I think a pass rusher would make a lot of sense. I think this could be an area where Donovan Ezeraku comes off the board. It's kind of in that Boyer Mafe range. So I think he could potentially go here. Bears at 39. I think a lot of people were thinking maybe running back in round 1 if Gentry lasted. Travion Henderson's still on the board. Seems like a Jahmyr Gibbs style fit for Ben Johnson's offense. So they take him there. Now it's time for the quarterback. And there is a lot of buzz that the Saints like Tyler Shook. And they can plug him in and play him in year 1. I think he is somewhat pro-ready. I think they could take Will Howard to do that job as well, because Will Howard reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott. And we've seen Kellen Moore have success with Will Howard. So we'll see what happens there. I just wouldn't rule out Will Howard in that spot, but I've got them taking Tyler Shook with that pick. Bears back on the clock. Tackles have gone, so I don't expect them to go in that kind of direction. I think potentially going with a pass rusher here. And when I look at the players available, I think JTT would make a degree of sense in this kind of range. And he is expected to go relatively early at the start of round 2. So I've got JTT going there. Jets at 42. I think this is a fairly obvious one. They didn't take the tight end at number 7. I think because they thought they could get the tight end in this kind of range. Is it going to be Mason Taylor? Is it going to be Elijah Arroyo? I think Arroyo's mobility makes him the pick here at 42 for the Jets. Niners at 43. So they go and get an edge rusher with their first pick. Now they've got to go and get a defensive tackle, and they need some interior rush. So I'm going to have TJ Sanders come off here. I think TJ Sanders is an excellent 3 technique type of player. And for the Niners, they need pressure. They need to be able to rebuild that defensive line. So I think Sanders or Darius Alexander, or if they wanted a bigger nose type who's athletic, and that could be an option for them. 44, Dallas Cowboys. I think with the Cowboys, taking a guard first, it makes you wonder that it kind of makes you wonder, like, are they going to go running back now because they didn't take one in the first round? Are they going to go receiver because they didn't take one in the first round? I think either of those things are very, very possible. And there is this, like I said, this talk that the receivers are going to come off the board quite quickly. And Trey Harris has been getting a little bit of buzz there. I'm just not sure that they're going to go receiver after all that. They might just wait on that position. And they do have CeeDee Lamb. They could do with defensive line help as well. They could potentially do with cornerback help. Wow, this is a difficult one. It's difficult to work out what the Cowboys could potentially do here. They obviously do want to run the ball, and they have taken Tyler Booker, presumably with the idea of doing that. It's a difficult one to think what they're going to do. I am going to have to make a decision here, and I am going to have them replace. Yeah, I know what they're going to do. I know what I'm going to have them do. They're going to replace DeMarcus Lawrence with Landon Jackson. And if there is one thing that Jerry Jones is always very happy to do, it's to take a player from Arkansas. So Landon Jackson comes in and he plays the edge to replace that sort of bigger bodied DeMarcus Lawrence off the edge. Colts of 45 got their tight end in round 1. I'm going to give him a linebacker in round 2. Carson Schwessinger comes off the board here at 45. Rams at 46. There was chatter that Trey Amos could be an option for them, that they would probably go cornerback in round 1 if sort of looking at that direction. So I'll have them take Trey Amos here, the cornerback. As you can see, Shedeur Sanders still on the board. I just, where's he going to go? Like, all of the talk is the Saints are not interested. If the Browns aren't interested, then who's the team? Maybe the Raiders to sort of draft and stash him. There's a relationship with Tom Brady there, but I don't know if that's a given because they seem to want to win now. And you kind of look down the list, like, where's he going to go? Like, Rams is an option, I suppose, but he could easily last into this kind of range. Cardinals, 47. So they went with Walter Nolan in the first round. You would think that possibly cornerback is an option here. Possibly defensive line. I know what I'm going to have them doing, though. They need an offensive lineman. They need a guard. I'm going to have them taking Jonas Savaiinaea here at number 47. Dolphins at 48. Go and get Kenneth Grant in the first round. Offensive line is definitely an option for them, but the options are kind of depleted at this point. Cornerback is definitely an option here. I think that's what I'm going to have them doing. They need defensive backs. Which one would they take? Some people like Ravel. Some people like Morrison more. I'm going to have them take. I am going to have this. I'm trying to think of their scheme and everything like that. So they're the Ravens style system as well. And for that reason, I'm going to have them take Savon Ravel. I really hope he lasts to Seattle and they've cleared his medicals. I would love to see Savon Ravel in Seattle. I think you're basically getting a first round pick in round 2. But I've got him coming off the board here. I have not pre-planned this mock draft, by the way. So I'm kind of just going along as we do it. I would have loved to seen Ravel fall to Seattle. And I would have taken him at 50 if he was there. Bengals at 49. They're another team that you would think could potentially go offensive line. They need a guard. They could go defense again, having taken the pass rusher Shamar Stewart in the first round. I'm going to have them do that. Nick Emanwari here at 49. Now, people wonder, why is Nick Emanwari still on the board today, and why have I got him lasting to 49? It's the character concerns. I keep telling them, and people keep saying, Why is he falling? What is the issue here? There's been Todd McShay and Bob McGinn have both reported that there are some quite significant sort of personality problems with Nick Imawari in the locker room. So that is why he's lasting. But as we know, the Bengals are often willing to turn a blind eye to that kind of thing. And they take him here at number 49 to play in the AFC North. So there we are. Seahawks on the clock at 50, and then shortly after 52. What would they do here? Well, I'll tell you what they're not going to do. They're not going to take Shedeur Sanders. He's not a personality fit for Mike McDonald and John Schneider. I am convinced they are not going to take Shedeur Sanders. There are some receivers who are appealing. There are players that I think that they will really like. You know, Braden Swinson is a player that I really like. Jack Besh at receiver is someone I really like. You've got the two Georgia offensive linemen, Tate Ratledge and Jared Wilson there. You've still got Alfred Collins. If you want to pair him back with Byron Murphy, the ex-Texas teammates, Darius Alexander would be very interesting for Seattle. I think based on what he showed at the Senior Bowl, he would be a fascinating addition. And, you know, you could take a Benjamin Morrison. You could take an Azariah Thomas. You know, and I think if you sort of look further afield, Kevin Winston Jr., if you've given him the clear medical, would be interesting. Although Oladejo had a good Senior Bowl. There's one or two quirky things about him, but he's also got, you know, quite a personality on him. And then there's the quarterbacks. You know, Adam Schefter has touted the possibility of a quarterback being taken in the second round. So what am I going to have them doing here? I am going to have them looking at this. Mason Taylor's available as well. They had an official visit with him. He would definitely be a strong option. I just get the feeling that maybe a defensive lineman, pass rusher type could be appealing here. Continue to build up those trenches. So I am going to have them take Darius Alexander with this pick. There's a bit of a feeling that he's going to be a top 50 player. They haven't replaced Roy Robertson Harris. And at the Senior Bowl, he beat Josh Connolly off the edge at 300 plus pounds. And obviously they put a lot of faith into the Senior Bowl. They're taking Grace Abel after a great Senior Bowl performance. Darius Alexander was very good at the Senior Bowl. And like I said, they've lost two defensive tackles. I think sort of adding another player to that mix could be an option here. And they may just think that Darius Alexander is the best player still on the board. So I don't think many people expected that. But that is what I am going to do. I'm going to put him here just to mix things up a little bit. I could have put any number of players there. Broncos, I'll have them take Mason Taylor as a potential weapon there for Bo Nix. And then 52, what are the Seahawks going to do? Like Adam Schefter has been, like I said, speculating potential quarterback. Are they going to go in that direction? They could take Jalen Milroe here. I don't know. Robbie would have loved them to take Will Howard here. We're kind of wondering if they're going to take Quinn Ewers here. What are they going to do? I have a feeling that they are going to continue to build the trenches. Continue to build those trenches. And I'm going to have them take Tate Ratledge. Like, if you want to be the kind of team that they say they want to be, which is sort of built in that foundation up front, O-line, D-line, these are the kind of players you have to take. And I know they took Christian Haynes a year ago. He couldn't even get ahead of Lemire. And, in the same way, are you going to not take Tate Ratledge because of Christian Haynes, Lemire, and Anthony Bradford? I think you have an opportunity in this draft to build an Eagles-style interior offensive line. And you can get by with Jalen Sundell or Oluwatimi at center. And then you have your sort of very athletic, physical, aggressive left and right guard. That would help you become the kind of team that you want to become. It would help shape the offensive line could become the personality and the identity of the team. So I think it's really important to be able to do that. And maybe I'm wishing this into existence. And maybe they'll just go, well, that's it. They've made an investment in the O-line. We're going to look at different positions now. And it is going to be D-line. It is going to be cornerback. It is going to be quarterback. It is going to be receiver. Maybe it will be. But I just think there's so many good options later on at some of these positions that I'd rather see them sort of concentrate on the trenches here and just become a trenches dominant team, be the kind of team that they say they want to be. So I'm going to go with Tate Ratledge there. Tampa Bay. So they went with a receiver, surprisingly, in the first round, but they've talked about getting ball hawks in this draft. And Benjamin Morrison was that for Notre Dame. So we'll put him here. Packers have a lot of needs. Cornerback is a need for them as well. So I think Azariah Thomas might last a bit because he didn't test particularly well. In terms of pass rushers, you're getting down the list now as well. But I just have to say, I'm such a Braden Swinson fan. I don't see him lasting much longer beyond this. And I'd love for the Seahawks to take him. If they took him in round 2, I'd be celebrating. Chargers at 55. Potential pass rush here. Nick Scorton, maybe. I don't think he's not somebody I rate that highly, but I could see him kind of going in this range. Buffalo. The Bills took Maxwell Hairston. That filled a need for them. They really need a big defensive tackle to sort of fit into the middle of the line. Alfred Collins would be a good fit for them there. Panthers badly need defense. Badly need someone who can play the edge. I think it's going to have to be Oladejo here because they don't have too many options. Texans back on the clock. We gave them Luther Burden before. Are there any offensive linemen that they could potentially look to take here? Not anybody that really stands out. Maybe they could go for Jared Wilson and plug him in at center. Possibly. That is a possible option, isn't it? As they continue to build up that line. Let's go with that. We'll give him to the Texans here. Ravens. What could they potentially do? So they've taken a safety. Offensive line would be an option for them as well. They also need pass rush. Jordan Birch, bigger sort of defensive lineman, could be an option for them there. Lions at number 60 took Tyreek Williams, defensive tackle. You would think maybe a pass rusher would be a good choice for them here, but options are limited. What about on offense? They need to get younger on the offensive line. Are there any options left? Not many. Not many that you would say, that's an obvious one, go and get him. So because of that, it's quite hard to know what they would do here. Pretty tricky. It's a difficult one to work out what some of these teams are going to do when they get to this kind of range. Maybe they just got to have a look at who are the best players available in this situation. And there's been a bit of talk that they might move on from the receivers, former Alabama receiver, I can't remember his name. So Jalen Noel at 60 to the Lions. Washington Commanders, they went O-line in the first. They badly need defensive pass rushers, but not really anybody there that sort of strikes out. Could they go for cornerback safeties? Maybe. I'll have them take Xavier Watts here. And then the Bills back on the board. What could they do? I think safety could be an option here. A lot of people, Kevin Winston's really well liked. So as long as the medicals are okay, that's a distinct possibility for them. Chiefs. Billy Bowman run on safeties. They lost Justin Reed and they bring in Billy Bowman there. And then the Eagles obviously moved up to get Jihad Campbell. This could be a spot where someone like Shamar Turner comes off the board at the end of the second round. So on to round 3. Giants back on the clock now. We know that they've already made a couple of moves there to sort of really bolster things in terms of their pass rush and get a quarterback. You're looking at some of these players that's on the board. People can say, this isn't going to happen, Rob. This isn't. I mean, you just don't know, do you? I think Caleb Johnson in this kind of range would be good for them. Chiefs back on at 66. they can afford to sort of go best player available here. Maybe someone like Trey Harris at receiver would be a good pick for them. Cleveland Browns bolster the lines, brought in Will Johnson. Could this be where Shedeur Sanders goes? Could this be like he's fallen to the top of round 3? Someone will finally take a chance on him. Maybe so. Maybe this is where he comes off the board. We will see if that's a possible option for them there. Vegas Raiders. Azariah Thomas does look a bit like a Pete Carroll kind of cornerback, so that could be a good pick for them. New England Patriots, pass rusher to go with Will Campbell in round 1. They need weapons. We will give them, I like the idea of Jack Besh there for the Patriots. Jaguars back on the clock made that. I did not like the trade that the Jaguars made to go and get Travis Hunter, but they did it. And there you go. They still don't have a defensive tackle. Joshua Farmer, maybe, in this kind of a pick here. Saints have got Kelvin Banks, Tyler Shook. They need to go and have a look and see if they can bolster the defensive line. They need cornerbacks. This could be the kind of area where Darian Porter comes off the board. Bears, we've given them a tight end, running back, edge rusher. Are there any tackles worth having here? Trapillo, yes, but he's strictly a right tackle. Could they go? Yeah, do you know what? That's an idea. Put Quinshon Junkins next to Travion Henderson. Reunite them from Ohio State. That could be an option for them both there. Jets, offensive tackle and a tight end. Now might focus on the defense. Just having a look at the kind of options that are left here. Now you just wonder a little bit whether could they go with a cornerback? Could they go and get someone like Jacob Parrish here, maybe? We'll give them Jacob Parrish. Defense for the Panthers. They need a lot more. Ty Robinson here at 74 would be a decent pick for them. I think he could go a little bit earlier than this. Niners have a very obvious need in their secondary. Can they afford to take any of these cornerbacks at this range? I think Jordan Hancock's going to go a bit earlier than people think. So I'll give Jordan Hancock to the Niners there. Cowboys. Cowboys at 76. Booker is the guard. Jackson is the edge. Still haven't taken a receiver. We'll give them Kyle Williams, who again could go earlier than that. It would be totally justified. Patriots back on the clock. What could the Patriots do here? I just get the feeling that someone like Andrew Makuba could be an option. But then again, they need to really bolster that offensive line still. And Ozzy Trapillo would be good value. Local player. They could plug him in there. Seahawks nearly on the clock again. Walter Nolan, Jonas Savanaia, 16 and 47. Who are they going to take in round 3? What could they potentially do here? Receiver could be another option. This could be where that teams are really tapping into those receivers now. I really like Torrey Horton, so we'll give him to the Cardinals here at 78. Texans, they have a receiver. They have a new center. Do they want to go and get another player now? Another player for that offensive line as they completely revamp things? Could they go and take a Marcus Bowe here, potentially, and plug him in at guard? Colts, tight end, linebacker. Is there anything else that they just need to keep adding that field to their secondary where they can? This could be somewhere where Andrew Makuba comes off the board. Bengals have gone edge and safety. They need offensive linemen. Is there a Bengals type offensive lineman here? I think it's a bit early for Wyatt Millam. Is there somebody that would kick inside at this spot? I could see them, they like bigger offensive linemen. I could see them taking someone like Cam Williams here and kicking him inside to guard. That brings us to the Seahawks. So, they've got into this position now, 82 and 92. They have gone guard, defensive lineman, guard. I think you could talk about a receiver here. You could talk about a pass rusher here. I think you could talk about a quarterback here. Jalen Milroe still there. I am going to have them consider Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers. Receivers, I think the well has run a little bit dry for this spot. I think I'm going to wait until day 3 for that position now. Not ideal, but that might, as we're going through this, doing this mock, maybe that means you have to do something at 50 or 52 at receiver, because you might get to this spot and it's just the options aren't there. And then with edge rushers, they had Princely Umanamalian in for a visit. I just don't think that's likely. Josiah Stewart could be a big option for them here. Cornerback. Safety, a potential option. I think purely because of the potential and the ability to make him a Taysom Hill type player, I'm going to have them take Jalen Milroe. So I could easily imagine John just having his eye on Quinn Ewers, and that's that. But we'll go with Milroe here and say, look, they make the investment, round 3. They'll find a way to use him as a rookie, and then they'll move from there. Quarterback here, I think Will Howard's potentially going to go earlier than this, but I just think if they get into this kind of range, I could definitely see the Steelers just taking Will Howard and feeling pretty happy about it. Bucks, again, they need a lot. I think Jonas Sanka could be a really good pick here. I think the Seahawks could look at somebody like that there. This is surely the kind of range where they would think about a running back, and I love DJ Giddens, one of my favorite players in the draft. Chargers, trenches, running game, addressed. Do they now look at receivers? Who could they look for? Let's give them Savion Williams as kind of like a X-factor weapon for them there. Packers have gone edge and receiver. They need a cornerback. They really need to come out of the draft with a cornerback. Who is the kind of player they could take in this kind of range? Options are not great. I'll have them take Dorian Strong. 88. Jaguars back on the clock. Got that defensive tackle need. Got the cornerback / wide receiver need. Could they keep adding weapons? That's definitely possible. Harold Fanning's probably not going to last this long, but he's here in my mock, so because I've not planned this out, so we'll just go with him there. Luther Burden, Jared Wilson, Marcus Boat, they've gone all offense at the moment. The Texans. Let's give them a defender here, and let's give them. I just think Demetrius Knight could be somebody that their head coach just really is his kind of player. Rams at 90. They've taken a cornerback. What are the receiver options like? Is there a Rams receiver still on the board here? I'm not sure there is. So I'm going to have them taking Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, to bring in to develop him. Ravens 91. Starks and Birch come in. They look an offensive line. Is there anybody there? Is there a tackle they could kick inside? Possibly. I'm not sure I like any of those options. Let's have a look at some of these. Cornerback. Is there a cornerback there? Not really. Linebacker. I can imagine them liking somebody like Smail Mondon Jr. to play next to Roquan Smith. And then the Seahawks back on the clock. So very offensive heavy so far. Jonas Sank would be an option here. I just think there is a chance that the Seahawks are going to come away with this guy. Josiah Stewart there at 92. I think the Wink Martindale connection, the fact that he is just going to play with his hair on fire, he could be a long-term replacement for Chenna Nwosu. Top pass rush win percentage in college football last season. I think he could be an option there at number 92 for the Seahawks. So that is basically what I've done here. Because of the situation in round 3 in wide receiver, and going through this process again makes you realize that some of the decisions you have to make. I'm maybe thinking more now, yeah, they're probably going to go receiver in round 2 because you get to round 3 and the well might have run dry. So they may well have to use 50 or 52 on a receiver or one of the tight ends if they want to go that route instead. And is Milroe going to last at 82? I mean, the feeling was like round 3, round 4 for him. And he's kind of got pumped up a little bit. Everyone was deceived by the fact he got invited to the draft. He was not taken in the first round. Is he somebody who is actually going to go where we all thought he was going to go in the end? Possibly so. And then you've got Josiah Stewart there. I think he'd be a good addition. I love if they come away from this draft with Gray Zabel at left guard and Tate Ratledge at right guard, it's an A+ for me. Whatever else they do, it's an A+. Because I think you're setting up the foundation of that offensive line to be, like I said, Eagles-esque, and for it to be very, very good. I'm just having a quick look at my board to see if I've missed anybody off who I haven't taken yet, who really shouldn't be at this point, and there isn't anybody who sort of stands out that's glaring. So I think we're okay. I think we're okay to carry on here. So Saints at 93. Is there any sort of big defensive ends left? Any sort of big-bodied pass rushers? There's not really. But this could be the kind of range where someone like Jack Sawyer comes off the board. Receivers maybe. I don't think they're going to go for a defensive tackle. But then they don't have many weapons either. So let's see. I think I'll give him Jalen Royals. He's probably lasted too long in this mock. Browns at 94. So as you can see, they've had quite an adventurous draft. I mean, if that happened, I think a lot of people would say that's pretty much an A+. Plus they've got the extra first rounder next year. Could they go with another offensive lineman here? Could they go with an edge? Could they take? Is this? I think Princely Malian's going to last longer than people think. I'm going to have him take Kyle Kennard. I think if you put him across some Myles Garrett, I think he could do some damage. He could really do some damage. Chiefs at 95, like their little haul so far. Could they take another linebacker at depth there? Probably not. Actually thinking about their roster. Cornerback could be a need. They've had them take a safety. I think Deion Walker might. I don't really like Deion Walker, but I can imagine some teams like him more than I do. Eagles at 96. They've gone offense, all offense so far. This guy has probably lasted again too long, but in round 3, Terrence Ferguson's very solid pick at tight end. Vikings at 97, just the offensive lineman so far. Cornerback is a need for them. Who is the kind of player that could take in this range, though? Is there anybody left? I'll have a look at my board, actually. Who are the players that I could see them taking? It's kind of depleted. I mean, all of the buzz is that Denzel Burke is not going to go this early. So I'm not sure I want to put him there. I'll have them take a safety in Lathan Ransom. He can maybe replace Harrison Smith long term. Cornerback and defensive tackle for the Dolphins. They need O-line help. Is there anybody here who makes sense for the offensive line? And the answer to that question is not really. Could they look at a receiver? Safeties? Maybe they take Jalen Reed. There's not a great deal of options there for the Dolphins. They have so many needs. Texans here, they've gone O-line heavy, receiver, linebacker. Is there a player who just stands out right now as best player available? Not an obvious one. Do you know what? They might go running back here because of the fact that Joe Mixon's. How long has he got? Bashal Tutin is very highly rated. Niners love to take running backs in this kind of range. I'm not sure they can afford to do it here, though. No offensive line picks so far. Do they have a look at some of these guys? I'll have them taking Charles Grant here. Kind of fits the offense they run. Falcons, I thought that was an abysmal trade by the Falcons, by the way. To take a risk on James Pierce, but to take a risk at the expense of an extra first-round pick next year is just absolutely bizarre. I don't think the Falcons actually know what they're doing. I think the move last year to pay Kirk Cousins a fortune and then go and take Michael Penix Jr. and go and sign a cheap bridge. That made no sense at all. And a year on, trading a future first to make sure you get James Pierce just does not make any sense. So, I mean, who knows what they would do at 101? Flush it down the toilet? I don't know. It's really, really hard to know what exactly the plan is with the Atlanta Falcons. I guess they've got to go defense again. They're a desperate franchise. Could this be somewhere where Danny Stutzman comes off the board? Barrett Carter. A lot of people like Barrett Carter. I'll give him there. And then the Lions at 102, just because I've mentioned him and because it's the last pick in round 3, I'll give him Danny Stutzman. So there we go. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm not sure that having done this, it goes to show how difficult it is to create a second and third round mock draft. When you're just kind of going through it and you haven't put any thought into it, it's really, really difficult to know what the Seahawks could actually do and how to form it. And they probably, I think if I was a team, having done this today with you guys online, just coming in and sitting down and doing it, what I think I would probably do is I'd probably do like a lot of these kind of mock draft simulators overnight or within the scouting departments, just sort of what could happen, who do we need to take, where are the positions to target. And just coming off this, I think if you want a tight end or a receiver, you've probably got to do it round 2. I think the offensive line, it makes perfect sense why they went that direction in the first round, because my word, that well runs so dry so quickly. So if you want another one, if you want Tate Ratledge or Jared Wilson, you're going to have to take them in the second round. They're not going to last to round 3. The options are not going to be great in round 3. And I just don't know whether the quarterbacks are going to last as long as I'm projecting here. Maybe they will. I mean, if in 2022, everyone was surprised when all of the quarterbacks lasted to round 3. Everyone's going to be, if Shedeur Sanders lasts to round 3, Rich Eisen is going to be sulking his way all the way through the NFL Network broadcast, wondering how that's happened. It's probably kind of the range where he should go, given the draft process that he's had, given the lack of great physical tools that he's got. But if he lasts and Jalen Milroe lasts, it'll be seen as a surprise. Maybe it shouldn't be. But there's that one line from Adam Schefter about, the line from Schefter as to the Seahawks taking one in round 2. You just wonder, is something going to happen today that's going to shock us all? And I don't know if it can be Milroe. I've gone with Milroe here purely because of the Taysom Hill factor, purely because of the Lamar Jackson factor, the upside, the potential, the mobility, the arm. Those are the kind of things, the personality, the military background with his family. It all seems to tick all of the boxes I can imagine Mike McDonald and John Schneider going for. But I could easily imagine John Schneider just saying, I like Quinn Ewers. I've been targeting Quinn Ewers for a while. I'm going to take him. So it's very, very hard to do one of these without any planning. And I think the teams have to be planning, because it is a good day 2. There's a lot of good players available, but as you kind of go through it, it's very unpredictable and hard to know when to target which positions. So you've got to be on your brief. And maybe for that reason, the Seahawks will feel being aggressive is the right thing to do, to go move up from 50, to go and get a player they really want and say, we want him, we're going to go and get him, as opposed to we're at 50 and 52, we're just going to wait and see who lasts. And that's going to be the really interesting thing. So we'll see how it goes. I just want to finish, we've done a 45-minute mock draft and I'm on 2 hours sleep. So I'm going to finish off with some thoughts on, the players that I would most like to see at 50, 52 or in round 2. I think if the medicals are clear, I think you really have to consider Will Johnson and Savon Ravel. I think they're just so talented, excellent cornerbacks. If you believe that they can stay healthy, if the medical reports are okay, then I think you have to consider them. The problem is, if Will Johnson is lasting to 50, and the fact he's already lasted this far, as talented as he is, I just don't know. You wonder how far he's going to fall. The medicals must be really bad for him to fall to round 2. Ravel's a different prospect, but I just really like Savon Ravel. And, we're talking about players you could trade up and go and target. He might be one of them. But you've got Benjamin Morrison there as well, Azariah Thomas. Some people like Trey Amos. I think cornerback is a good, that could be a sweet spot for the Seahawks at 50 or 52. I do like the defensive lineman. I do like Darius Alexander. I do like TJ Sanders. I do like Ty Robinson, Joshua Farmer, people like that. I can understand why other people like Alfred Collins maybe more than I do. So you've got some situations there. The pass rushers. I'm a huge fan of Donovan Ezeraku. Huge fan of Braden Swinson. I can see why they would like JTT. They're all options in round 2. Tate Ratledge, Jared Wilson. I've already said, if you get Tate Ratledge in day 2 and you can put him across from Gray Zabel as your 2 guards, I think that's an A+ draft for me, whatever happens with the other players. So I think you've got to consider that. But I think Jared Wilson's comparisons to Eric McCoy make him a very appealing option as well. I love the 2 tight ends, Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor. If you can get either of those, I think it'd be a great pick. Jack Besh, huge fan of Jack Besh. I'm not as high on Jaden Higgins as some people. I understand it. I understand why he's probably going to go in round 2. I like him. I just didn't think he was that exciting. I thought Jalen Noel was a more exciting player and perhaps a player they'd be more inclined to go for. It's just that he drops too many passes. So that you have to keep that in mind as well. But then there's Noel, there's Williams, there's Torrey Horton, who I really like. You've got some big time options there. And then there's the quarterbacks. They had an official visit with Tyler Shook. They had an official visit with Jalen Milroe. I can see teams liking Will Howard. I can see teams liking Quinn Ewers, some of them. So you've got a whole bunch of options there. Whole bunch of options. And that's, without thinking about the prospects and doing something completely outrageous, like taking a running back. There are good running backs in this class. And then in round 3, a few names to highlight. Jonas Sanka, the safety. Really like him. Would be open-minded about Torrey Horton. Very open-minded about that. Jordan Hancock, the cornerback. I think it'd be a really good pick. I wouldn't be totally against taking Chase Lunt in round 3. I think he's got a lot of potential and upside there. So I think there's a lot of good players. Josiah Stewart that we've already talked about. So there's some good options. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the Seahawks should do. Anyway, let's get to the super chats, and then I will wrap things up for this live stream. Jason says, thanks, Rob, for all you do. Let's trade up and go and get our guy. I'm down with that. I don't mind an aggressive move here. I don't think they necessarily need 10 picks. I think they need quality, not quantity. So let's see what they do. I would not mind them being aggressive in using a third rounder. I just don't know how easy that's going to be. Once the Falcons trade up 20 spots and give up a first round the next year, you do start to wonder whether teams are going to start asking for that. And if you remember in 2009, the Broncos traded up to the top of round 2, gave up a first round pick to Seattle, and that ended up being Earl Thomas. So I think teams might ask for too much now because of the Falcons, and you might not be able to move up. So we'll see. That said, teams are really valuing day 2 picks this year, so maybe I'm wrong on that. Thank you, Jason, for your super chat. Jig says, cheers from 35k feet up. No better way to spend long flight than hearing from Rob. Oh, I can't believe you can hear us in a plane. That's cool. The number 1 analysis of the Hawks. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Make anything of the MMJS energy last night. So I've seen a lot of people saying this, they look flat in the draft room. They didn't seem totally energized in the press conference. I think we read too much stuff into this. I think they genuinely hoped they were going to be able to trade down. I think they were hoping they were going to get a big offer to move down that might get them some stock next year. I think they would have happily done that. I think that's purely because of the grading. It's the grading. They were going to stick to the board. They've took Gray Zabel, who probably has a similar grade. Some of the players that are going to come off in the next 10 picks this second round. And for that reason, they probably thought they'll trade down and whatever. But what I would say about that is, on reflection, who the heck would have drafted to play left guard if they'd have traded down? The options are just so thin now. That would have been a glaring issue, and people would have been panicking like crazy today. So I think they were hoping to trade down. They didn't get the offer. That may have made them a little bit flat. I don't think teams have to be. Do you know what? Here's the point I'm going to make on this. I think sometimes it all feels a little bit forced when all the officials, they know the cameras are on them, and you've got the owners and the scouts and the GM and they're all stood there high five and applauding. Everything's amazing. Everything's great. Of course we got our guy. I think sometimes, there's nothing wrong. I mean, if I was in a draft room, I wouldn't be celebrating or anything like that. I'd probably just be like, yeah, we picked the player, we spoke to him, and now we're going to sit and wait out the rest of the round. So I think we read too much into, oh, they're disappointed. They didn't get the guy they wanted. Oh, they didn't get the thing. I mean, there was nobody ahead of them that I think they were particularly, unless they were hoping that Jalen Walker or Tyler Warren might last. But if they wanted those guys bad enough, they could have just gone up and got them, and they didn't. Same with it, like the guys who maybe went after that. I don't think they've gone for Walton Nolan or Shamar Stewart. So yeah, I don't. If they wanted Jalen Walker that badly, they could have just gone and got him like 3 picks away. So I think it was purely down to the inability to trade down, and that was just all that was about. But I wouldn't focus. I would not worry about that if I was a Seahawks fan. Graham says, just a thanks for the time you put in for all of us. The best coverage by a mile. The fact it's from a fellow Yorkie is just a bonus. Yorkshire. Graham, thank you for that. Much appreciated. And Yorkshire is the best. Noah says, what's so nice about the Zabel pick is now we can do whatever we want without worrying about the offensive line. Well said, Noah. Tight end, edge, wide receiver, defensive tackle, quarterback, even safety, all feel possible. Completely agree with that. It's a very, very good point. And I would add quarterback to that list as well, just in case they like somebody. And Craig says, just got back from work after 2 hours sleep too, so I know how you feel, Rob. Get some sleep before day 2 starts. My plan is to finish this stream and go to bed and get some rest. So that's what I'm going to do in a second. But I appreciate you, Craig, and hope you're not too tired when round 2 comes around. Right, wanted to do that. Just a quick mock draft. Some people had asked for it. I didn't really want to write it out because I'm knackered, so I just thought I'd come on and talk about it, but it's actually made me probably as knackered as it would have been to write the whole thing out. Hope it was even vaguely entertaining or interesting. It was just me reading names out off a screen. I'm not sure that what I actually ended up with for the Seahawks is something I think they're going to necessarily do, or is that realistic? But we went through the process. Maybe they need to take a receiver in round 2 now to avoid missing out. Maybe that's more likely than I thought an hour ago. I don't know what's going to happen with the quarterbacks. I think they may end up lasting longer than people think. I think that's something that's maybe confirmed in my own mind during that process. We've learned something there. So there we go. Remember, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment in the comment section. Here's what we're going to be doing tonight. There'll be an open thread on SeahawksDraftBlog.com. I'm providing instant reaction to all the picks on YouTube when they happen. I'll probably just do 50-52, put a video out. Then I'll do a video for 82, 90, whatever it is. I will do that afterwards as well. And then as soon as day 2 is finished, back on with a live stream with Robbie, and we will talk through everything that the Seahawks have done today in what could be a game-changing day for the Seahawks. So join us for that live stream as soon as round 3 is. In fact, do you know what? We'll jump on as soon as the Seahawks pick is done. So when the Seahawks are done for the day in round 3, we'll be jumping on. Come on, join us, get the best analysis, be with us here, join in the comment section. So as soon as the Seahawks are finished in round 3, get on the live stream on this channel, and we will see you there. So that's what we've got in store. Stick to SeahawksDraftBlog.com as well. Should be an interesting day. Until next time, bye for now.